Hi, we're in week 9, and we're going to do a little bit of review. This is about thinking critically. In this chapter, you're going to learn about what it means to think critically, why it's important, what facts and opinions are, why it's important to be able to distinguish between them, what interference are, and why is it important to make logical inferences. Thinking critically is thinking in an organized way about material in order to evaluate it accurately. To think critically, you have to use the skills of distinguishing between facts and opinions, drawing logical inferences and conclusions, something that can be proved to exist or has happened, opinion, something that cannot be proved or disproved, a judgment or belief. When an author includes opinions, it's important for you to evaluate these opinions because not all opinions are valid and useful. Although opinions can be provided, they are supported by valid reasons and reasonable evidence. An opinion is valuable if it's well supported. Well supported means the author represents facts and logical reasons for the opinion that he or she holds. Well supported opinions can be useful as useful facts. Opinions represent judgments, beliefs, and interpretations. Words and phrases that indicate the author is presenting opinion. Perhaps, apparently, it seems, it appears, presumptually, one possibility is, one interpretation is. In my opinion, many experts believe, many people think that. It seems likely, it suggests, in our view, in our opinion. Words that indicate value judgment. Greatest, best, worst, excellent, interesting, beautiful, wealthy, successful, fascinating, effective, humorous, and pleasant. To distinguish between facts and opinions when reading, critically ask yourself the following questions in this order. Can the information in the statement be proved? If so, is it correct information and therefore a fact? Can the information be a statement is disproved? If so, it's simply incorrect information. Is the information statement something that cannot be proved or disproved? If so, it's opinion. If it's opinion, consider how well supported it is. Can be proved as a fact, valuable information. If it's a statement, it can be disproved. Is it incorrect information? No value. Cannot be proved or disproved. It's opinion, which will be well supported opinion valuable, poorly supported or unsupported opinion of no value. When the statement is an opinion, ask yourself these additional questions. Is the opinion well supported? That is it based on valid reasons and plausible evidence? If so, what's a valuable opinion? Is the opinion poorly supported or unsupported? If so, little or no value. What are the inferences? Why is it important to make them? Inference. A logical conclusion based on what the author has stated. A critical thinker understands not only what the author states directly, but the author suggests or implies. Inferences go beyond what the author states. They're always based on what the author has said. Logical conclusion is a decision that's reached after thoughtful consideration of information the author presents. If you're thinking critically as you read, you should ask yourself, what's a logical inference conclusion you can make based on what the author has stated? To make an inference, the reader must deduce or reason out the author's meaning. Things to keep in mind when thinking critically. Facts and opinions may or may not appear together. Authors sometimes present opinions in such a way that they appear to be facts. There are other critical thinking skills that can be used to evaluate written material. Detecting the author's bias, the author favors one side over the issue of another. Recognizing propaganda techniques and recognizing fallacies. Recognizing illogical arguments or support. After reading this chapter, you should know what it means to think critically and why it's important. What facts and opinions are, why is it important to be able to distinguish between them, and what inferences are and why it's important to make logical inferences. We're looking at deductive arguments to truth and functional logic today. Students, you're going to be able to learn to understand the basics of the truth in the tables. The truth functional symbols symbolize the normal English sentences and the claim letters and truth function symbols. Build truth tables to symbolize with other letters. Evaluate truth functional arguments using common argument forms. Use a truth table and sort the truth table methods to determine whether the argument is truthfully valid. Use elementary valid argument forms of equivalences to determine the validity of arguments. Use deduction to demonstrate the validity of truth function arguments. Truth functional logic is also known as propositional or sentimental logic. It's become apparent. The logic sentences is the basis which the modern symbolic logic rests, and such important as intellectual areas as set theory and foundations of mathematics. We have truth tables and truth functional symbols. We have logical vocabulary. It consists of claim variables and truth functional symbols. Before we consider the real heart of the subject, truth fables and the symbols they represent them, let's first clarify the use of letters in the alphabet that symbolize terms and claims. Claim variables. They appear in the chapter with the variables used in the terms. Truth tables, let's consider the truth tables and symbols. Truth functional logic, any given claim, P is either true or false. The following little table is called a truth table. It displays both possible truth values for P. Whenever truth value claim P might have, the negation is contrary. We symbolize it with the P on the other hand for the negation. He says, so my new neighbor, Jack, are you the only child? There are 5 of us. Really? Many boys and girls? He said, all of them. We can see this with PQ. Conjunction is a compound claim made from 2 similar claims called conjuncts. A conjunct is true if and only if the similar claims that make it up. We have a disjunction. It's another compound claim made of 2 similar claims called disjuncts. A disjunction is false if only both of the distincts are false. The third kind of compound claim made from 2 simpler claims is conditional claim. If Moore's paycheck arrives in the morning, then Moore will buy lunch. P. Paula goes to work. Q. Quibbly has work a double shift. We can symbolize entire claim like this. P is less than Q. There's a truth table and symbolization here. ED 6-3. Symbolizing compound claims. Most of the things we can do with symbolized claims are pretty straightforward. We can learn these techniques. Truth function logic, like electrical circuits. Truth functional trickery, you could do that. Using what you know about truth functional logic, you can identify how the sender of this encouraging looking notice to defend the claim because it's true, even though the receiver is not going to get 1 nickel. You won $1 million. Remember the Winston Steakhouse? They always say that you win. Damned if you do, but damned if you don't. Remember that saying? David has a scripture verse from Revelation 21:8. The fearful, the unbelieving, and the abominable, the burners, the whoremongers, the sorcerers, the idolaters, the liars shall have no part in the lake that burneth with fire and brimstone. It came in the brochure, religious sect offering salvation to believer. Notice though the passage from the Bible doesn't say that if you believe, you won't go to hell. It says that if you don't believe, then you'll go to hell. In this chapter, we're going to answer this question: what's thinking? What's critical thinking? What are the characteristics of critical thinkers? What are the barriers to critical thinking? How do critical thinkers analyze an argument? What's the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning? What does creative thinking add to critical thinking? What is thinking? Thinking is organized and controlled mental activity that helps you solve problems, make decisions, and understand ideas. Good thinkers from a plan and systematically try different solutions. What is critical thinking? Critical thinking is deliberating in a purpose, organized manner to assess the value of information, both old and new. Critical thinkers search, compare, analyze, evaluate, and conclude. They think systematically, evaluate, and draw conclusions based on logic. Critical thinkers be willing to have a plan, be flexible, be persistent, be willing to self-correct. Should state legislators vote or take away driver's license for students aged 16 to 18 who drop out of school? Critical thinking, we might use these words: analogy, conclusion, argument, consistency, induction, premise, reliability, relevance, assertion, believability, deduction, and fallacy. We have a frame of reference: wishful thinking, hasty moral judgments, reliance, authority, and labels. Critical thinkers, we hold our own opinions up to scrutiny, we drive the heart of the issues, we assess reasons for opposing views, solve problems, gain knowledge, justify your positions, and gain confidence. Be willing to plan, think first, write later, don't be impulsive, develop a habit of planning, be flexible, be open to new ideas, consider new situations for old problems, be persistent, continue to work even when you're tired and discouraged. Good thinking is hard work. Be willing to self-correct. Don't be defensive about errors. Figure out what went wrong and learn from your mistakes. We want to make sure that we are assertion versus argument, not argumentative statements meant to inform and explain. I like soy milk. It rained a lot over the weekend. An assertion that supports a conclusion that's meant to persuade. You should water your grass because it won't be raining in the near future. Step to analyzing the argument. Identify the position on the issue. Identify support in the argument. Evaluate the support, evaluate the argument. There are no words to identify the position of the issue. As a result, consequently, finally, for those reasons, in summary, it follows that, therefore, thus, and should. There are no words to identify the support of the argument. Because, since, if, first, second, finally, asserting that, given that. Types to support the arguments. Facts. Objective truths. Ask, how are the facts gathered? Are they true? Examples. Anecdotes to demonstrate the truth. Ask, are the examples true or relevant? Analogies. Comparisons to similar cases. Ask, are the analogies accurate and relevant? Authority. Words from recognized expert. Ask, what are the credentials and basis for the expert? Types of support for arguments. Causal relationship. Saying one thing caused another. Ask, is this actual cause or merely association? Common knowledge claim. Assertion of wide acceptance. Ask, is this relevant? Does everyone believe it? Statistics. Numerical data. Do the numbers accurately describe the phenomenon? Personal experiences. Personal anecdotes. Ask, is experience applicable to other decisions? Fallacy. An interference that appears to be reasonable at glance, but closer inspection proves it to be unrelated, unreliable, or illogical. Relevance fallacies, believability fallacies, and consistency fallacies. There's relevance fallacies we've talked about: bandwagon, testimonials, overgeneralization, questionable authority, appeals to emotions, appeals to pity, overstimulation. Evaluate the argument, 4 degrees of support. Identify the position, identify the support in the argument. Evaluate the support, evaluate the argument. Inductive versus deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning starts by gathering data, considers all available material, formulates a conclusion. Deductive reasoning starts with the conclusion of a previous experience, applies it to a new situation. Creative and critical thinking. Vertical thinking is straightforward and logical way of thinking. Lateral thinking is a way of thinking around a problem or even refining the problem. Creative thinking involves both vertical and lateral thinking. Primary points. What is thinking? What is critical thinking? What are the characteristics of critical thinkers? What are the barriers to analytical thinking? How do critical thinkers analyze an argument? What's the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning? What does creative thinking add to critical thinking? Right? Good insight, everybody. All right, so I do want to remind everybody about the homework for this week. The homework is for us to do some strategic thinking corporate and organizational life, analyzing, evaluating thinking in corporate organizational life. We also want to do strategic thinking. When we're doing our discussion number 9, what is the example of critical thinking in business? I want you to write about how the main points of current event connect to this week's objects and reading. How would you apply what you learned in your organization? And week 9 assignment, continue working with the decisions in Kava scenario. You've been working on that every week. Your feedback from your professor, research, and your text reading to complete the decisions. You should be looking at part 3, you're Nick and your employer, and the organization represented with Alex, Nick, and Chris. Use week 5 and 7 assignments to help you with this. Don't forget to make sure that you use information from this case, materials from the course, and independent research, your mission of your current organization, and your week 5 and 7 assignments. It should be about 1,050 to 1,750 word paper, which you describe your rationale and plan for implementation for the proposed solution to your organization to establish a greater presence of Kava by determining the factors affecting the decision-making implementation of an organization and your proposed solution, evaluating resources and actions required for decision implementation of your proposed solution. You want to evaluate the ethical implications, the stakeholders' perspective of your proposed solution. Please don't forget to make sure it's an APA format. Okay, chapter 10, issues analysis and contentions. There's 3 types of questions. Factual, usually have a correct answer like X. The sun is a star. Yes, that's true. We have interpretive, have more than one valid answer based on the personal interpretation supported by evidence. What did Bill Murray's whisper at the end of Lost Translation? No one knows for sure, but we can speculate, interpret, and discuss valid options. Opinion. Ask an individual what they personally think in regards to something. If it's not right or wrong, it's simply an opinion. Example, political and religious ideas fell into that category. Characteristics of issues. Issues are phrased as questions, but not all questions qualify as issues. Issues can be introduced by either pro or con side. The number of issues a person can discover is unlimited. Issues bring organization to the argumentative environment, and issues should be specific as possible. 3 research types. Exploratory research, constructing and identifying a new problem. Constructive research, developing a new solution to an existing problem. Empirical research, verifiable evidence to the feasibility of an existing solution to a problem. Cost and benefit analysis, evaluation of the pros and cons before taking a course of action. Priorities analysis, a survey based on prioritizing your resources in the form of trade-offs and sacrifices. Programs analysis, policies are adapted to achieve certain goals. As a result, current policies have been evaluated against the goals that have had or not been reached. Continuities analysis and evaluation of what has been done in the past and whether it's been successful. We have potential issues. So types of issues, once the issues have been discovered, they can be classified. Potential issues, all possible questions can be asked in the claim, which we learned earlier is not unlimited. Omitted issues, these are questions raised by one side and agreed by the other side. Real issues, these are questions that remain after narrowing the potential issues down. Ultimate issues, these and themselves are sufficient to the disposition of the claim. Contentions, aka arguments, what you need to know. Contentions are reason for a main point that supports your position in the claim. Contentions mostly come from ultimate issue that both the pro and the con side reach earlier. Contentions become justification for your position. Contention should flow from one to the next, advancing the overall case of your side. Contention should reflect the logical organization, asserting only one conclusion at a time. Contentions are foundation, causing positions to become defined. Contention organize and logically support the structure of advocates' ideas and why the audience should accept their point of view. Steps to creating an effective argument strategy: do your research, brainstorm, and analyze to discover potential issues. Narrow down potential issues and select the ultimate issues. Turn the ultimate issues into statements. Advance these statements to create contentions of your position. Make these contentions the center of debate and argue them for evidence and reasoning. Meaningful argumentative communication requires that argument be grounded upon substantive items and issues, the very foundation of rational argumentative encounters. By carefully examining what you already know in the brainstorm and analysis, by conducting specific research to discover major issues. A meaningful argumentative communication requires that argument be grounded upon substantive items or issues, very foundation of rational argumentative encounters. By carefully examining what you already know in specific brainstorming and analysis, and then conducting specific research, you will discover the major issues. James Sawyer said that. Oops, sorry, my thing is frozen. Believe it or not, my best computer I have. I have 5 computers. Yes, I have 5 computers. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and take a break from this reading. My computer got frozen, but we are going to watch a video on critical thinking. Oh, so many wonderful drinks these days.
sweets. I don't crave sweets the way I do during the holidays throughout the year. Like, it's like something comes out of me. Like, and I'm just...
Walmart has really great commercials this year. I wanted to say that.
Thank you, Dr. Kimmel.
And now we have Lior Ben-Zvi.
With her topic of critical thinking. Please welcome her to the stage.
5-minute speech.
Today, I'm going to teach you how to start a revolution. Well, not exactly. I'm going to tell you how to start the process of changing, or if you want to be real, saving this world. Over half the world's population is living in poverty. The US Senate still has to debate over whether or not climate change is real. People are getting killed by the hundreds every day. There are rioters in the streets, and what you may not know is that we are the largest generation since the baby boomers, making up over 25% of the world's population. Now, this statistic, it gives us a responsibility that goes way beyond our control. Because a mess has been made, someone has to clean it up, and it's probably going to start with us. How do we do that, though? Well, we could start by thinking critically, for one. The official definition of critical thinking is defined as the objective analysis of an issue in order to form a judgment. All right, let's break that down backwards. In order to form a judgment, you have to start caring. Find an issue that sparks interest and opinion. You see, we live in a world where information is literally available at our fingertips. But we also live in a world where, and possibly this is as a consequence of the available information, where we are alienated. We're alienated from nature. We're alienated from each other. We're alienated from ourselves, from the world itself, in part because the excessive amounts of social media and propaganda, and it's hard to see past that. And on top of that, violence and injustice have become such common occurrences that we've just become desensitized to them. So, as bad as it may seem, you have to actually start caring. Once you start caring, though, the caring and the passion that inevitably comes with the caring will enable you to come in touch with available information. We have TV, we have newspapers, web forums, we even have school. Now, there's so much information out there. How much of it is actually true, is facts? After all, every piece of news is just someone else's version of the truth. And if everyone has the same version, does that mean that it's necessarily true? What do we believe? Who can we trust? This is where the first part of the definition comes into play. Objective analysis. It's your job to filter through the information being thrown at you in order to make a well-thought-out, cohesive opinion. Take, in most recent news, the headlines that you've all seen about Baltimore. One news source may have a headline talking about the rioters and the violence they cause and the cars they're burning. Another may be strictly about police brutality and racial profiling. Now, these headlines can both be skewed. There you have it. Every newspaper, at the very least, stretches the truth. It's what they do. It's their job. They sensationalize media, especially headlines, in order to invoke immediate interest and emotion in the reader. That's why it's important not only to question the headlines, but also the content itself, because it can differ. In fact, you should be questioning everything around you. That is the essence of critical thinking. Try for a day to challenge everything around you. Think about what your teachers say, what your parents say, what the president says, what you say, what we're all doing. When you think, it forces you to see a different side of the information being presented. So yeah, it's important to question authority, but this is by no means synonymous with going against everything you're taught. What it means is that while it's important to have strong opinions, it's equally as important to have an open mind about what you're learning. We make up over 1/4 of the world population. And yes, it is a responsibility. But I like to look at it as an opportunity. By understanding the world, by delving into its flaws, its problems, the suffering that takes place in it, but also its beauty and its triumph, we can make sense of what it has become and start mending it for ourselves and for future generations, all the while making it a happier place. Thank you.
There. Let's go ahead and look at some inductive arguments. My PowerPoint. Oh. Right, thinking critically. Critical thinking is a way to think about ideas. These could be ideas that you come up with or ideas that you've already heard and read. It covers a range of values, skills, and knowledge. What a good idea! Good ideas are based on accurate information. They can be used to make decisions that are predictable as possible. Bad ideas can be based on information that's misleading or wrong. Making decisions using bad ideas can end up causing you to take wrong actions or cost more than you're willing to pay. Your brain involved to take in information and use the sense of your surroundings. However, it requires a lot of energy to do this. So your brain uses a number of shortcuts to save energy. They work well most of the time, but in some occasions, it makes you more confident in the idea that should be. Illustrations are a result of your brain taking a shortcut. Do these horizontal patterns look straight to you? Critical thinking involves a variety of skills, values, and knowledge. Skills are a thinking process. They can involve ability to reflect analytically. Imagine broadly, relate to other people, communicate clearly, identify context and bias, to apply logic effectively, and recognize application of the core logic. Knowledge describes facts and theories such as the strong logic, measured observations, contemporary scientific theories. Values are concepts you think are important. They can involve appreciation of the diversity of ideas people have, right to respect, be critical of each other's ideas. A good idea depends on accurate information, usefulness of logic in forming new ideas. People can have a confidence in bad ideas. Values of what inform our decision making. Sometimes we put on a purity friendship, while other times it may be wealth. We might like to put on a value on thinking reasonably, but sometimes our fears, our faith, and values might take priority instead. Knowing how to understand our own values and those of others are important in making good decisions. We're going to read this activity and handout. What do we evaluate? We're going to complete the exercises. Find a newspaper article or a letter to the editor that you disagree with. Identify values differ between you and the article's author. to watch a video about valuing arguments. Your parents and teachers might not like you arguing, but in important critical thinking, knowing what makes a good argument is important. An argument is structured, response in order, the idea to show why you should or shouldn't have confidence in it. It's made of two parts, premises and a conclusion. Premises are ideas that are already presumed to be true. Conclusion, idea accepted to be true. Argument is valid when it has logical structure. Premises accepted as true. Could be broken logic. An argument is valid when it has logical structure. Premises are accepted as true. Premise 1, magnets attract iron. Premise 2, the object is made of iron. Conclusion, magnets will attract the object. Both premises are accepted as true, and the relationship between premises and conclusion is logical. Arguments can be invalid if the relationship between premise does not lead to conclusion. Think of mathematical equation. Just 3 plus 2 does not equal just 1. An incorrect relationship between the premises will make a conclusion incoherent and incorrect. Invalid arguments. Premise 1, magnets attract iron. Premise 2, the object on my hand is attracted to the magnet. Conclusion, the object in my hand must be made of iron. While premise 1 and 2 are correct, they don't combine the possibility and produce the conclusion. In this case, premises don't exclude the possibility that other materials are attracted to magnets. Arguments have good logic structure but have false premises. True premises come in 3 varieties: axioms, self-evident truths such as all squares have 4 sides. Observed facts and valid conclusions are from other arguments. Critical thinking involves the ability to identify and likely to premise is true or false. Read the following arguments. 3 of them are invalid. Identify the invalid arguments and state whether logic is flawed or premises are incorrect. Premise 1, Jack started school in June. Premise 2, things started going missing from the changing rooms in July. Conclusion, Jack is a thief. Argument 2, scientists rub nanoparticles in the skin of mice, and the mice got cancer. Humans can get cancer from nanoparticles. Argument 3, bacteria are defined in paraquats. 2, paraquats are defined as having no nucleus. Conclusion, bacteria do not have nucleus. Argument 4, all teachers are females. Premise 2, Bill is a teacher. And conclusion, Bill is a female. Answers, number 1 would be invalid. Nope. Premises might be true, but there's other possible reasons explaining why I started to go missing in June. Valid 2. Premises might be true, but humans and mice aren't the same signals, therefore logically 2 premises aren't comparable. Number 3, valid. Premises are true and conclusion follows them. Invalid was 4. Conclusion logical, but premise was off. Read this following arguments of counterarguments. Each counterargument is specific, off-topic, oversimplified, exaggerated, or wobbly twisted. Identify which one you think is so. Okay, let's look right here. We have argument, use of nanoparticles and products comes with benefits and risks. We should continue research in nanotechnology so that we can understand what's safe and what's not. Counter argument, nanotechnology comes with risk, and knowing what is risk will allow people to misuse the technology. Research into nanotechnology should be stopped. Argument, we're pumping more and more carbon dioxide into the air. These gases trap heat in the atmosphere, and so through our actions, we are heating the planet. We must do something to reduce the carbon dioxide emissions and slow global warming. Counter-argument, carbon dioxide is more absorbed by plants. More carbon dioxide will just mean more plants, and this cancels out any concerns about global warming because extra carbon we make won't stay in the atmosphere. Argument: while there is ethical concerns regarding the use of embryonic stem cells, research in this area can help improve the lives of many people. To continue with the research in this area. Counter-argument: the world is overpopulated as it is. Medical research just extends lives, leading to more overpopulation. It's unnatural that we live so long. Research the area should be stopped. Argument: in law, a patent protects people's work by giving them exclusive rights to it. It costs a lot of money to isolate and identify genes, and therefore it's only right for you to patent genes. It protects your investments. Counter-argument: patenting genes means owning something that is naturally occurring. Pretty soon, a handful of biotechnology companies are going to be all down our genetic material. Parenting of genetic material should be stopped. Argument 1. Counter-argument is oversimple. Argument 2, counter-argument twists the facts to draw a conclusion. Argument 3, counter-argument is off-topic, ignoring the issues ethics in the embryonic stem cell research to focus on overpopulation issues. And assignment 4, the counter-argument exaggerates the issue at hand. Extension: are there parts of the counter-argument that you found that you would like to agree with? How do these counter-arguments match your values with activity? We want to visit this and follow the links. Your brain is a complex organ, however, your organ nonetheless is involved in the work cooperatively with the other brains, meaning it's used as thinking tools that work well in groups. The upside down is that there's safety in numbers. The downside is that it produces bias. There's help for us to cooperate with people who share our values and beliefs. But it also means that we are more likely to dismiss the ideas of people who don't like or trust, or those values that aren't the same as ours. Fortunately, this can persuade us to overlook valid arguments or to dismiss valid arguments prematurely. What sort of social factors affect our thinking authority? We rely on experts who spend time researching facts and come with conclusions, identifying informed experts among the range of talking heads of the virtual skill in today's world. Popularity: ideas we hear from people and views as friends and celebrities are more easy to accept as valid. Exclusively, ideas we hear from people is a view as a bad or enemy is difficult to accept as valid. Equivalence: everybody has the equal right to hold on to opinion, but not all opinions are equally likely to prove right. Okay, so rank of 1 to 10. 1 is the least and 10 is the most. What opinions do you have? What do you think? Business executive, 10. Government official. Politician, TV journalist, blogger. How about friend? Teacher, family member, environmental activist, scientist. I know for a fact that you guys have cross country, right? And you guys have nouns, not team sports. But I know some schools, they want to be individualistic, so might have to sign up for park and recreation or competition if your sport is not in the area for you to participate in. Do these people have similar values to you? Do you consider them experts? What issues would you approach these different people about? What additional people would you add to the list? Our brains are really good at identifying patterns in nature. Sometimes they're really good at identifying patterns and see images that aren't there. The following sequence is mostly to come next. Which of these answers matches yours? You said either heads or tails. Tails, having a good run, or heads. It's Gamber's fallacy. The answer is A. Heads or tails equally. Because it's one on one side. 50-50. Can be difficult to appreciate how probability works. Our difficulty distinguishes it probable from what probable makes us identify patterns of sequence where there are none. And confirmation bias. Confirmation bias has a tendency we can suspectly look for the patterns in the confirmed ideas we already suspect as true. This means we are more likely to see consequences of events or listen to arguments for the point of view. Virtually, our idea is a bad one. It makes less likely that we'll spot our own flaws in arguments. Critical thinking involves challenging our ideas. That means looking for what the world could have in our arguments is wrong, looking for ways to disprove rather than improve. While jargon, metaphors, and mathematicians are useful to communicate ideas, they can sometimes be confusing or misleading. For example, metaphors and phrases work to compare a new idea with what you already know. However, they can sometimes imply unwanted DNA meaning. DNA is a code. For 4 basic chemicals are encouraged, arranged in sequence. Codes are messages intentionally written. DNA might be like a code. It doesn't really mean somebody wrote it. AI writes it, right? What's important to make a good argument? Anytime you need to persuade somebody is useful in making a decision. It needs to be supported by a logical, sound argument. This is a burden of proof. Even you need to convince yourself that your ideas are reliable. You don't need a good argument to back it up. Sometimes people have to persuade others to accept the risks that come from their actions, such as adopting a new technology like genetic engineering or nanotechnology. If the decision makes involves other people, you have burden of proof to convince them to accept the risk. This is no easy task. While our actions have difficult effect on others, we don't have the same options worth taking. Sometimes people have to persuade others to accept the risks that come from their actions, such as adopting a new technology like genetic engineering or nanotechnology. If a decision makes you have a burden of proof to convince to accept any risk. There's no easy risk. Our actions have effects on others. We don't have that same effect with talking. People can sometimes demand certainty that there'd be zero risk when applying precautionary principle. The misrepresentation of these principles, though, is logically, it was impossible that there would always be some kind of doubt, even if the idea seemed to be certain. The precautionary principle not is interpreted as being about 100% risk-free, but about having a clear understanding of the risks and benefits of decision and knowing when to proceed cautiously. New technology is often viewed with caution until it becomes familiar. Given the mix of potential risk and benefit science can provide, it's important decisions are made critical thinking. Your argument. Discuss this. How safe is safe? At what point does something become safe or unsafe? If it turned out that the case of MG food was safe, then could the people have starvation? Would it be an evil act to delay introducing it? A lot of people claim that we should delay action or climate change until the science is in, and we have proof of it. Some people say the same about new technologies, such as genetic engineering, but think that we should act now as climate change without having waiting for absolute certainty. Can these two completely contradictory positions be equally acceptable? New technologies. Were developed by massive philanthropist organization rather than multinational corporations. Would this affect the merits of technology or not? Would any philanthropic organization be acceptable? What if philanthropy came, for example, religious or political strengths? What are three questions we could ask when applying precautionary principle in the new technology? Where benefits of the new technology can improve the risk uncertainty associated with the technology, where the risk and uncertainties attracted to any current ways, and we have realizing the same benefits using existing technologies. Do they work? What do you suggest? Right. Right. Thank you, everybody. That was good. Nice and sweet. Right. See you guys next time.